जय गोपीजन वल्लभा जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी जय यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीरावनचारी यमुना तीरावनचारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 जय कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम जय जय राधा श्याम सुंदर राधा श्याम सुंदर राधे जय जय गौरनिता जय गौरनिता जय गौरनिता जय गौरनिता जय 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 प्रभुपाद 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 जय श्रीला प्रभुपाद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय। वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्यो च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master was sitting here. Opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances at the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते जयतां सुरतो पंगोर्वम मंदमतिर्गति मत्सर्वस्वपदाम्बोजौ राधा मदनमोहनौ दिव्यद्वृन्दारण्यकल्पद्रुमादः श्रीमद्रत्नागार सिंहासनस्थौ श्रीमद् राधा श्रीलगोविन्ददेवो प्रेष्ठालिपि सेव्यमानो स्मरामि श्रीमान् रासरसारम्भि वंशिवटत्तटस्थितः कर्षण्वेणुसुनैर्गोपीर्गोपीनाथ श्रेयस्तुनः तप्त काञ्चन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यो च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। I'm begging blessings from all my elders and all my superiors. My spiritual masters are here, many of them. Please bless me. Actually, every living entity is capable of giving blessings because every living entity is a part and parcel of Krishna. So I'm begging blessings from every single living entity. That something of value can be said here. Today we are going to, I was instructed by Bhakti Anugrah Janardhan Maharaj to give this class on his behalf today. It's a poor substitute, but he told me to summarize the 17th chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila. Now, this chapter is very long. There are 336 verses. And when I was reading the verses and the purports, after he told me what I'm supposed to do, I counted about 47 pastimes in that chapter. So there's no way I can actually do justice to all of these pastimes, but he told me to summarize it. Now, it's actually very difficult to summarize a summary. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita constantly says that I'm only touching a drop of the ocean of nectar. And so the Chaitanya Charitamrita is actually a summary of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. So normally when we do a Chaitanya Charitamrita class, we take one verse and then we expand on it, right? So to take 336 verses and try to condense that, something is going to get lost in the process. So I beg your pardon if your favorite pastime, your favorite thing that you wanted to see from this chapter does not come out today. Okay? Actually, this is true not just of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, what to speak of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, but also Srila Prabhupada's pastimes. When Srila Prabhupada came, for example, to Krishna Balaram temple on a particular day and did a particular thing, and then you hear his disciples talking about that pastime. And it's not a one-dimensional thing. Like every disciple has a different perspective of what happened and their personal interactions with Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada, who is an Acharya, not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, can have unlimited pastimes in this way. Like books about Srila Prabhupada are still coming out. I'm reading so many of them. And it's so many wonderful, unrecounted pastimes are there. So it's difficult. It's not one-dimensional. But we'll try. And hopefully, by your mercy, something can be said. Now, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is adopting a particular format for the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So you see that he's constantly summarizing what he's going to say in the future. He's constantly summarizing. That's because, just like Srila Prabhupada, he was not sure if he's going to live long enough to complete the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So he was 90 years old when he started the work. His hands were shaking, his eyes could not see. He writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita himself. And he was very, very careful to try and give out as much as possible, as early as possible. Just like Srila Prabhupada translated the Krishna book well before he came to the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, because he knew that anything can happen at any time. So similarly, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is summarizing in this last chapter a whole sequence of pastimes, also because Vrindavan Das Thakur has already done so. So, quick summary of this chapter is actually given in the beginning of the chapter. So I'll actually read that so everybody gets the full context of where we are going today. Okay, it's a very short, relatively short description, and we are reading the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his youth. That's the 17th chapter, as summarized by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Prabha Bhashya, describes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes from his 16th year until the time he accepted the renounced order of life, which is 24 years, right? So 8 years of pastimes are covered in this Adi Lila. And in this particular, this 17th chapter, in this 17th chapter is covering 8 years of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life. Okay, so it's a very condensed version. Srila Vrindavan Thakur has already vividly described these pastimes in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Therefore, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes them only briefly. Vivid descriptions of some portions of his pastimes are seen in this chapter, however, because Vrindavan Das Thakur has not elaborately described them. In this chapter, we shall find descriptions of the mango distribution festival and Lord Chaitanya's discourses with Chand Kazi. Finally, the chapter shows that the same son of Mother Yashoda, Lord Krishna, tasted 4 transcendental mellows of devotional service in his form of Sachinandan, the son of Mother Shachi. To understand Srimati Radharani's ecstatic love for him, Lord Krishna assumed the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The attitude of Srimati Radharani is considered the super excellent devotional mentality. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna himself assumed the position of Srimati Radharani to taste her ecstatic situation. No one else could do this. When Sri Krishna assumed the form of the 4-armed Narayan, the gopis showed their respect, but they were not very interested in him. The ecstatic love of the gopis, all worshipable forms, but Krishna are rejected. Among all the gopis, Srimati Radharani has the highest ecstatic love. When Krishna, in his form of Narayan, saw Radharani, he could not keep his position as Narayan, and again he assumed the form of Krishna. The king of Rajabhumi is Nanda Maharaj, and the same person in Navadvip is Jagannath Mishra, the father of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Similarly, Mother Yashoda is the queen of Rajabhumi, and in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, she is Shachimata. Therefore, the son of Shachi is the son of Yashoda. Sri Nityananda occupies an ecstatic position of parental love in servitude and fraternal attraction. Sri Advaita Prabhu exhibits the ecstasy of both fraternity and servitude. All the Lord's other associates, situated in their original love, engage in the service of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The same absolute truth who enjoys as Krishna, Shamsundar, who plays his flute and dances with the gopis, sometimes takes his birth in a Brahmana family and plays the part of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, accepting the renounced order of life. It appears contradictory that the same Krishna accepted the ecstasy of the gopis. And of course, this is very difficult for an ordinary person to understand. But if we accept the inconceivable energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we can understand that everything is possible. There is no need of mundane arguments in this connection, because mundane arguments are meaningless in regard to inconceivable potency. At the end of the 17th chapter, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, following in the footsteps of Srila Vyasadeva, has summarized the Adi Lila pastimes separately. Okay, so we are going to start today. Today's main verse is 1723, which is on the screen here. Okay, so we need our Mridanga player. Maybe one of you can play. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, let's read this verse 23. दार्ढ्य लागी हरेर नामा उक्ति तीन वार. जड़ लोक बुझाइते पुनः एव कार. दार्ढ्य लागी हरेर नामा उक्ति तीन वार. जड़ लोक बुझाइते पुनः एव कार. दार्ढ्य लागी हरेर नाम उक्ति तीन वार. जड़ लोक बुझाइते पुनः एव कार. Please chant.
हरेर नाम उक्ति तीन बार.
दार्ढ्य लागी हरे नाम उक्ति तीन वार.
जड़ लोक बुझाइते पुनः एव कार.
जड़ लोक बुझाइते पुनः एव कार. दार्ढ्य लागी हरे नाम उक्ति तीन वार. जड़ लोक बुझाइते पुनः एव कार. दार्ढ्य लागी तेरे नाम उक्ति तीन वार. जड़ लोक बुझाइते पुनः एव कार. दार्ढ्य लागी हरे नाम उक्ति तीन वार. जड़ लोक बुझाइते पुनः एव कार. Vaishnavis, please. दार्ढ्य लागी हरे नाम उक्ति तीन वार. जड़ लोक बुझाइते पुनः एव कार. दार्ढ्य लागी हरे नाम उक्ति तीन वार. जड़ लोक बुझाइते पुनः एव कार. Dardhya, lagi, in the matter of emphasizing Harer Nama, of the holy name of Lord Hari. Ukti, there is utterance. Tinvar, 3 times. Jadaloka, ordinary common people. Bujhaite, just to make them understand. Punaha, again. Evakar, the word eva, or certainly. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This verse repeats the word eva, certainly, 3 times for emphasis. And it also 3 times repeats Harer Nama, the holy name of the Lord, just to make common people understand. Let's repeat the translation also once. This verse repeats the word eva, certainly, 3 times for emphasis. And it also 3 times repeats Harer Nama, the holy name of the Lord, just to make common people understand. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. To emphasize something to an ordinary person, one may repeat it 3 times, just as one might say, you must do this, you must do this, you must do this. Thus the Brihad Naradiya Purana repeatedly emphasizes the chanting of the holy name so that people may take it seriously and thus free themselves from the clutches of Maya. It is our practical experience in the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world that many millions of people are factually coming to the spiritual stage of life simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra regularly, according to the prescribed principles. Therefore, our request to all our students is that they daily chant at least 16 rounds of this Hare Nama Maha Mantra offenselessly, following the regulative principles. Thus their success will be assured without a doubt. The context of this verse is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is enacting various pastimes. In one particular pastime, he snatched away a bag of raw rice from Shuklambar Brahmachari, and he ate the whole bag of raw rice just like that. And after that, he started explaining the meaning of this Hare Nama Hare Nama Hare Nama Eva Kevalam Kalau Nasteva 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 Gatiranyatha verse. And this is his explanation. And because this forms the seed of the Krishna consciousness movement, and it happens to be in this chapter, I picked these 3 verses. I will also read the next 2 translations only. The use of the word Kevala only prohibits all other processes, such as the cultivation of knowledge, practice of mystic yoga, or performance of austerities and fruitive activities. Let's repeat that translation, please. The use of the word Kevala only prohibits all other processes, such as the cultivation of knowledge, practice of mystic yoga, or performance of austerities and fruitive activities. We'll skip the purport, although it's a very delightful purport. We'll read the next translation too, the translation of the verse 26. To chant the holy name always. Sorry, I missed it. This verse clearly states that anyone who accepts any other path cannot be delivered. This is the reason for the triple repetition. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else. Which emphasizes the real process of self-realization. So, this is the root of the Krishna consciousness movement, the root of what Srila Prabhupada taught us. Even when he installed Krishna Balaram here in this temple, the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, some of who are here, were having a rip-roaring kirtan for days, continuously. And Srila Prabhupada also invited the local pandits, the local brahmanas here to help with the installation ceremonies. And they were doing all sorts of things, tying things on Srila Prabhupada and doing all the rituals which they are supposed to do according to the scriptures. And Srila Prabhupada submitted to all of that. He just kept quiet and just let them do whatever they wanted to do. But ultimately he said that we don't need all of this. Our deities are installed simply by chanting Hare Krishna. So that's what he said. And it's not that he made it up. He is speaking directly from the instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This chapter has many, many pastimes. So the Balya Lila, just like Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also went through the same stages. The Balya 0 to 5 years of age, the Pauganda, the 5 to 10 years of age, and then the Kaishora, 11 to 16 years of age. And then the Yauvana, Nava Yauvana pastime happened. And actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never actually aged past that Nava Yauvana stage. Like even when he was a 48-year-old sannyasi, practicing severe austerities because of his ecstatic emotions, did not actually look anything different from like a 20-year-old boy. He just looked exactly the same. And he dressed very beautifully during this time. And actually, our mood of worshipping Shri Shri Gaur Nitai in our tradition is actually that particular part. If you notice, on the altar, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not dressed like a sannyasi. So he's dressed exactly like between the 16 to 24 years of age. So this is the Gaura Nitai. This is the Gaura Hari that we are worshipping in our movement. And he defeated all kinds of scholars. Like he was like a proud elephant, going around. Nobody could defeat him. Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so scholarly. And in this chapter, actually the verse number 7 is a turning point. He starts to exhibit his real purpose of coming to the world when he meets his guru and accepts the Harinam Mahamantra from his guru, and he starts going externally crazy, starts to explain he was a great logician and a grammarian, and he was teaching hundreds and thousands of students, and he was teaching his students grammar in the terms of the names of Sri Hari. And whenever someone does that, Srila Prabhupada writes, people see that person as crazy. Like, what's this? You're leaving the whole Paninian grammar system and you're explaining everything in the names, in terms of the names of Hari. So students started to have doubts about their teacher. They were like, is he all there? Is he going crazy? Like, is he capable of teaching us? Should we find another teacher? Right? And there were lots of offenses committed by the students, which is why later on in this chapter, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to accept sannyas, because according to Vedic culture, even if we don't like a person who is a sannyasi, we are bound to respect that person because of his sannyas order. That's the culture. So in this chapter, like I said, there were 47 pastimes that I counted, and I could be wrong. There could be more, because again, this is just a summary. He showed his various different forms at the home of Srivas Pandit. He started his Sankirtan movement in the Srivas Angan that we visit in Mayapur, that tight space where he was building up an explosion, just like a pressure cooker inside there, building up. In this chapter is also a very brief description of the deliverance of Jagai and Madhai, about how in 21 hours of ecstasy he exhibited various pastimes, etc. So there's also a description of something that should be avoided, like for example, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not let everybody in, he only let the chosen. It's like we can see that Srila Prabhupada also, his disciples were like a chosen few, especially those who stayed in the movement, chosen few. Srila Prabhupada expanded his movement from those disciples and continuing their service. And they are actually, who has met Srila Prabhupada apart from the disciples of Srila Prabhupada today? So they are actually carrying on that tradition. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to keep that purity of the holy name also. So he had very few close associates inside that Shiva Sangan. And he would let everybody, the door was locked and nobody was allowed to come inside. And this angered many people. One of them was a Brahmana by the name of Gopal Chapal, who then decided to defame Srivas Pandit by some devious means, the kinds of things that happen on the internet against devotees. He tried to do the exact same thing in the internet of his time. But he experienced severe reactions. So anybody who actually blasphemes the devotees, especially on the internet, will experience severe reactions, even if you don't immediately get leprosy and have to move out of the town. So please don't do that. Never do that. Don't engage with any of this stuff on the internet. Okay, this terrible stuff. One Brahmana was very angry at not being let into the pastimes, broke his sacred thread and cursed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he says, I curse you that you will have no family happiness. He cursed. So there's a famous verse, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which ends with Vande Maha Purushate Charanaravindam Tyaktva Sudushtya Jasurepsita Rajya Lakshmim Dharmishtha Arya Vachasaya Dagadaranyam Maya Mrigam Dayitamepsita Manvadhavan Vande Maha Purushate Charanaravindam. The purport to that verse is written by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, Gopi Paranandan Prabhu, Hridayananda Maharaj, and I think, who was the third one, Prabhu? Who wrote those purports? 11th and 12th cantos?
Gopi Paranandan,
Dravida Prabhu. So the three of them wrote that purport. But they were so humble in their writing of those purports that they strictly quoted the previous acharyas, like they have quoted Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and so on in their purports, where our acharyas have described that verse. It's Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.33. That verse actually describes three personalities. It describes Lord Ramachandra, it describes Sri Krishna, and it describes also Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the same verse. And this particular verse, Dharmishtya Arya Vachasa, because he wanted to respect the curse of the Brahmana, he took sannyas. Obviously, it's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime. So that happened here. So we'll now go to the translation of the verse 64, which is another blessing for us. Okay, so please go to 1764 if you have your devices there. But this is an important thing. Anyone who reads this pastime and understands this pastime has a particular blessing. And this is especially important for us in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, because we must know that Brahmanas do curse us in many different ways. It's a fact. It happens in various temples when we go there. We don't really get into the ritualistic things. We try to respect them, but we're really not interested in those kinds of things. So they kind of have this feeling of anger towards us. Right? So here, translation of text 64. Any faithful person who hears of this Brahmanas cursing Lord Chaitanya is delivered from all Brahminical curses. So we don't have to worry about getting cursed by them. Obviously, we don't go there and go out of our way to offend them, but we don't have to get involved in all of their ritualistic activities. Because remember, we read in the translations of the previous verse that actually anybody who follows any other process has no hope for deliverance. Right? So we are following the one thing, chant Hare Krishna, and that's it. We don't get distracted by this, that, and the other. Okay? So there was also the pastime of Mukunda Datta, and this is also instructive for us, where Mukunda Datta was going, chanting with Mahaprabhu and the devotees, and then going and discussing Mayavad philosophy with others. And Mahaprabhu did not like this at all. So he did not allow Mukunda Datta to participate in his Sankirtan. And when his associate said, Mukunda is waiting outside, he said, well, he can wait outside. I'm not going to be pleased with him very soon, he said. And when Mukunda Datta heard that not going to be pleased with me very soon means that he will one day be pleased with me. So he took that as, and the moment Mukunda Datta had that particular kind of understanding that one day the Lord will be merciful upon me, then the Lord was immediately merciful upon him. And this particular thing, please remember this point, because the last blessing of this chapter actually tells us why this is important to us. Okay, so we'll talk about that. There is a beautiful instructions about how Sachi Mata had some offensive feeling towards Advaita Acharya because it encouraged her elder son to take sannyas, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave her a way to get freed from that offense. There's the pastime of Murari Gupta, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tested the devotion of Murari Gupta to Lord Ramachandra and was very pleased with him and christened him, Ramdas. Murari Gupta was practically initiated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Ramdas in this chapter. Then we read about how the immature students of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were offensive towards him, and that caused Mahaprabhu to accept sannyas. We'll read quickly the translation of 175, verse number 175, since we are going through this chapter at a very fast pace. 175. We'll chant this verse actually. We can chant it together. Call and response. Actually, we'll skip that since we are running out of time here. There is a pastime of the mangoes, which is very, very dear to the devotees. So the devotees were getting fatigued one day. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu planted a mango seed in the ground, and the mango seed immediately fructified, immediately sprouted and became a big tree right in front of the eyes of the devotees. It became a big tree and became a mature tree. Normally a mango tree requires at least 15 years before it will start giving fruits. But in this case, it gave fruits immediately. And these fruits had no seeds and no skin. So you didn't have to peel it, and there was nothing inside and one mango was big enough to satisfy one grown man. So it was you can imagine the size of such a mango. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu plucked about 200 mangoes for his 200 men who were in Sankirtan at that time. This was outside of Shiva Sangan, and he offered the mangoes to Krishna. So every day the devotees had just two activities. So they would sing and dance until they were completely fatigued, and then they would take the mangoes, offer the mangoes to Krishna, and then have a mango feast. So this continued for 12 months, this kind of pastime. So Krishna consciousness is a lot of fun. It's a big adventure. You never know what Krishna is going to do. There's the pastime of Chand Kazi, before that actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met an astrologer an astrologer came to the village, and who was very, very expert. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, it was asked, who was I in my last birth? So the astrologer knew who he was in the last birth just by looking at his bodily symptoms. But he just kept quiet. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu repeatedly asked. And then the astrologer said, in your last lifetime, my dear Lord, you were the supreme personality of Godhead. And Mahaprabhu said, really? I was not the supreme personality of Godhead. I was a cowherd boy, and because I offered a lot of services to the Brahmanas, I have now been rewarded with a birth in a Brahmin family, is what Mahaprabhu said to the astrologer. So he enacted many pastimes. Like he took the form of Varahadev, he took the form of Narsingadev and scared the living daylights out of everybody else, running out on the street, with his weapon. He was really convincing that way. He danced as Rukmini Devi, he danced as Durga Devi, he danced as Lakshmi Devi, he danced, and only very strict brahmacharis were allowed into these kinds of gatherings, because he was so convincing that it would basically destroy the brahmacharya of anybody who watched such a dance, who was not a pure-hearted brahmachari. There's the famous pastime of Chand Kazi, where he prohibited the Sankirtan movement, and Mahaprabhu said, I'm going to disobey this order. And he organized a huge Sankirtan party with hundreds of thousands of people. Hundreds of thousands of people is a big number even today, anywhere in the world. And all of them congregated at Chand Kazi's house, who then hid out of fear. Because Mahaprabhu's men, it's said in Prabhupada writes in the purports that naturally some of the men became upset and began to destroy the Qazi's property. They began to tear up the gardens, break down trees. It was becoming very unruly, like when a large gathering comes. Some people started getting angry. Even though Mahaprabhu was completely calm, some of his people were a little bit upset. So there was a great discussion on spiritual subject matters, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comprehensively defeated the philosophy of the Quran. It's fully stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu defeated. There's more description in other parts of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He explained the personal conception of God. He completely decried the killing of cows. As how is it possible? What religion allows the killing of your mother and your father? Right? It's not proper. And then Chand Kazi accepted that the scriptures were composed in a haphazard fashion, so they are not being followed properly. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also explained to Chand Kazi that there are two processes of devotional service, the Pravritti Marga and the Nivritti Marga. And that the Quran actually recommends that you should take the Nivritti Marga, which is to get freed from material sense gratification by giving up sense gratification. Whereas the modern teachers of the Quran only emphasize on the Pravritti Marga, which is what the whole current Muslim tradition goes for. So we can talk about this with the Muslims. We have no problems doing this, right? Not in the Middle Eastern countries, because you might get killed. And we don't want that. But anywhere else, we can openly discuss this. There's no problem in openly saying this. And how Lord Narasimhadev blessed Chand Kazi with the darshan in his dream. But that dream was real because he had scratch marks and burns on his face, like his face was burned by the flames coming from Lord Narasimha's anger. So all of these things are there. In this chapter also, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu raised Shiva's son back to life. It's no big deal for Krishna really to do that kind of stuff. Even Krishna's devotees can do that, as we see from the pastime of Chitraketu and his son, who was raised by Angira Muni and Narad Muni from the dead. So it's not a big deal for Krishna to do such a thing. But he did that as an instruction to all of us. People are always looking for miracles. Like when I was starting my process of devotional service, my big question was, how do I know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is God? How do I know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And I wrote more than 600 questions to my spiritual master, including such challenging questions, and he gave me all the references from the various. By that time I had not read these scriptures. But it's a fact that we have these things to convince the doubtful people who cannot simply accept Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, and then the important and the heart-touching thing is that because Shiva's son had died, Gaurahari and Nitairam became the sons of Shiva's Pandit and agreed to do his Pindadan every year. So there is a temple where the Gaur-Nitai actually offer the Pindadan to Shiva's Pandit. To this day, they offer the offerings that you do for the Shraddha ceremony. He blessed a tailor with mercy, like a tailor, an ordinary tailor, just on the street with mercy. He performed, he heard now we know from the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Shiva's Pandit is in the Vaikuntha Bhav, because he's an incarnation of Narad Muni. So, but that Shiva's Pandit recited the Vrindavan Lila to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this chapter. So you can read that. Okay, so we're going to go to 17,260, because time to start winding up here. Okay, this is especially important for all of us as we go out in the world. Okay, please chant. Yat adhyapak ar tara shishyagar dharmi karmi tapo nishtha nindaka durjan. So Prabhupada decried the modern educational system. He said he called it a slaughterhouse education. I have been through that same education, and I became an atheist at the end of the whole process. Right? If I was saved by the followers of Srila Prabhupada, otherwise I would have completely gone. Right? So here, he's saying all the so-called professors and scientists and their students generally follow the regulative principles of religion, fruitive activities and austerities. The Lord thought. Yet, at the same time, they are blasphemers and rogues. So Srila Prabhupada talked about the scientists very strongly in his conversations with his disciples. He was just repeating what is said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we are not against anybody, we are just repeating what Krishna is saying here. Okay, so this is important for us to know this. So then he took sannyas from Keshav Bharati Goswami, Keshav Bharati Swami, and Keshav Bharati actually. And then he performed his later on, his other pastimes. But we'll now go to the verse 275 from this chapter. This is another instructive thing for us. Okay. So, $275. 275. This is another important thing for us. Yeshodanandan Haila Shachiranandan Chaturvidha Bhakti Bhava Kare Aswadan. The same Supreme Personality of Godhead who appeared as the son of Mother Yeshoda has now appeared as the son of Mother Shachi, reaching 4 kinds of devotional activities. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada describes the 4 Dasya, Sakhya, and Matsalya and Madhurya is being relished by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this verse. Okay, so going on, there's a whole beautiful pastime about how Krishna manifests as Krishna to the very powerful, like the pure, simple devotees, and manifests as Lakshmi Narayan. Srila Prabhupada said that when we worship Radha Shamsundar or Radha Khichur Gopinath or any other deity, if we are not in the highest mood of pure devotional service, then they accept our service as Lakshmi Narayan, so that we don't end up committing offenses to Radha Krishna. Because that Radha Krishna worship is actually out of reach for most of us. So we are worshipping Radha Shamsundar, but you see the opulence of Radha Shamsundar, that's actually they are accepting the service from us as Lakshmi Narayan in that kind of opulence. Okay, so we'll look at the translations of verses 294 and 295. Srila Prabhupada's translations. 294 and 295. Father Nanda, the king of Rajabhumi, is now Jagannath Mishra, the father of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mother Yashoda, the queen of Rajabhumi, is now Sachi Devi, Lord Chaitanya's mother. The former son of Nanda Maharaj is now Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the former Baladev, Krishna's brother, is now Nityananda Prabhu, the brother of Lord Chaitanya. So actually, all of these pastimes and all of these things are inconceivable for most of us to understand. And when the British came to India 200, 300 years ago, they just could not understand the depths of the philosophy of Vedic culture. So Winston Churchill is famous for having said that I hate the Indians. They are a beastly people with a beastly religion. But we now know that Winston Churchill was a beastly man. So his certificate of beastliness is natural because he's a beast. Right? But later on there was a scholar that came in and actually got deep into these the Vedic scriptures. And even though they did not go past the Mayavad really, because it's very hard to understand a form of a personal God. Like you tell somebody God is a person and God is a two-handed person just like you and me, or we are like a two-handed person just like God, they think we are crazy. Like I'm in Toronto, so I get a lot of material from the Christians who want to save me. I appreciate their love. But when you look at their pictures, at best they will have a throne with like a bright light on it. That's what they will have as God. So you start talking to them, okay, Jesus Christ is Son of God, but they're not clear about this concept. Jesus Christ is Son of God and He's also God, but He did not say I am God. And we understand that from the Vaishnava Siddhanta. We understand the position of Lord Jesus Christ, but the Westerners have a lot of trouble understanding this. And who is the Father of God? We ask them, and it's like it gets really confusing. And but we understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has a two-handed form. This is very difficult for ordinary people to understand, this kind of philosophy. So therefore we emphasize the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra without getting too much into the philosophy. So even when there were programs in the early days, people started getting argumentative, mostly Indians started getting very argumentative. Srila Prabhupada said, all right, have kirtan. He just knew that kirtan and prasad are the only two things that most people can accept. So it's inconceivable, it was misunderstood. Even in India it was misunderstood. Right? So to such an extent that when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was on the planet, to call somebody a Vaishnava was to blaspheme them. Is to call them, it was like gali, like it was like a bad word. You call someone a Vaishnava, the person would get offended. What do you think? I'm not, because what was passing for Vaishnava was very low grade behavior, such as adultery and things like that. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Prabhupada actually helped us to re-establish, especially in Vrindavan we see all of these crazy things going on. So we will be careful. We look at 305, the translation of 305 very quickly. Since we are doing a chapter summary, we are close to the end now. Let's read this together in one voice. Ready? We have a translation, Prabhu? Translation. Yeah, let's read this together. 1, 2, 3. One cannot understand the contradictions in Lord Chaitanya's character by putting forward mundane logic and arguments. Consequently, one should not maintain doubts in this connection. One should simply try to understand the inconceivable energy of Krishna. Otherwise, one cannot understand how such contradictions are possible. Tarko apratishto shutayo vibhinna nasav matir yasya munir yasya matam na bhinnam dharmasya tattvam nihitam vihayam mahajano yena gatasya pantha. We for sure, based on the Srila Prabhupada's disappearance pastimes, all of us know that Srila Prabhupada made it. He already made it, but we have guarantee, right? Just from the way he left. We also know that many of Srila Prabhupada's disciples who followed his instructions carefully also made it. Right? They continue to make it on a daily basis, unfortunately for us. But they made it. So therefore we simply follow them without trying to, when I get into these kinds of things, my spiritual master often said, don't use your mind to degrade yourself. Continues to point out that that to me. So it's a great instruction. So this chapter has the essence of our devotional conclusion. And what is in it for us? Okay, so if you see this chapter, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami starts by describing a synopsis of the pastimes, then describes the pastimes, then gives the final summary. In the last few verses of this chapter, there's the description of the tattva of the Krishna consciousness movement is there in here. Okay, but there's a particular blessing, and that is our great thing. So we'll go to verse 332. Okay, let's chant this verse and the translation, and then I will conclude. जय जय अंश कहे सुने से धन्य, अचिरे मिले बेतारे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य. So all of us today who have made the endeavor to hear from the Chaitanya Charitamrita this chapter, we have this blessing. Okay, we can take this for us. This is what we have won today. Okay, what have you won today? This is what we have won. Let's read this together. Anyone who describes or hears any part of this elaborate subject will soon receive the causeless mercy of Shri Krishna Chaitanya Maha Prabhu. Okay, who wants this? So you already have it. Okay, so let's read that again. Anyone who describes or hears any part of this elaborate subject matter will very soon receive the causeless mercy of Shri Krishna Chaitanya Maha Prabhu. So we already received it actually, because Srila Prabhupada is an embodiment of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. We have already received it. We are participating in the Hare Krishna movement. We are chanting Hare Krishna. And we have read this chapter. So that makes it double, certain. So that's our blessing. Now, we may think, especially sometimes out of humility, the disciples of Srila Prabhupada might say, I've been chanting for 50 years and I have experienced no love for Krishna. I don't see Krishna face to face, or you try to pin them down and say, do you see Krishna? Like a lot of people, especially challenging Indians, will say, have you see Krishna face to face? I have heard Srila Prabhupada say things like, well, I see Krishna in the form of the order of my spiritual master. And then the people in general, they misunderstand that this person actually does not have any spiritual and there are others, shameless people outside, who will say, not only will they say that I have seen God, there are also people who will say, I am God. And the fools will follow such fools. Right? They will follow them. So, but we should understand that anybody who has adopted this process of Krishna consciousness sincerely and seriously is just like that mango on that mango tree. Okay? So it can happen quickly, it can happen fast, or it can take us some time, or apparently take some time, but it's going to happen. And how long should we be prepared to wait? So we should be prepared to wait forever, just like Mukunda Datta. So we should be prepared to wait for 1,000 lifetimes, million lifetimes, 10 million lifetimes, billion lifetimes, doesn't matter. Because if we are going to be waiting, what are we going to be doing during those billion lifetimes? We're going to be chanting Hare Krishna, we're going to be dancing in Kirtan, we're going to be taking prasad, we're going to be distributing books or whatever form of knowledge is on whichever planet we happen to go to. Right? What are we going to be doing? Is it going to be fun or not? It's going to be fun, there's nothing to lose. So we don't care really whether or not at the end of this lifetime I'm going back home, back to Godhead. We are already in Godhead. The Krishna consciousness movement is the Godhead. Right? So I'll conclude with that. So if there's any questions, comments or concerns or corrections, please let me know.
There was one guru who said that, the transcendence can't be described with words or with logic or philosophy. And it's not something that you can do by your education or your, philosophical analysis. He wrote a book on that.
He wrote a book on that.
that words are useless, So it's just that, are we expected to just believe that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself and Nityananda is Balaram? Because it's mentioned several places that, philosophically or logically, reasonably, we can't really discuss it in that a mundane platform. So how much faith is involved here?
Well, I think Adau Shraddha, Tatha Sadhu Sangha, Tatha Bhajana Kriya. The idea is that it's not that it cannot be understood through philosophy and things like that, but that it requires a particular sharp instrument of our consciousness that can only be acquired by the process that the spiritual masters are giving us. So, if I had not agreed to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, I would not have understood any of this stuff. So, we accept enough, like let's say we are distributing a book, we aim to create just enough faith in that person to be able to read that book, to be able to accept that book and give us some donation. Yesterday we were out distributing, we distributed 1,000 plus books in Brahmanda Ghat yesterday with Vaisheshika Prabhu and his team. And that's all we had to do, just create just enough faith for them to be able to take one book. And then we just keep fanning that faith and keep helping them to follow the process. So it's not that we are blindly following someone. We know that Srila Prabhupada has exemplary character. We know that anything that he did was completely on the transcendental platform. We know from hearing from his close associates how he behaved. Like there was no inside and outside Prabhupada. There was no, like they say, no man is a hero to his ballet, but we know Shrutakirti Prabhu is here. He's still a hero, 50 plus years. His ballet is still hero worshipping his master. So we know that he's
We could take the even deeper level. How do we know that God even exists, or that Krishna is actually God? The real bottom line is, if you go deep, 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 deep into Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, be able to directly see Krishna and see how Radha and Krishna, be able to see directly how Radha and Krishna are manifested now as Lord Chaitanya. So it's actually, when we have faith in great acharyas like Srila Prabhupada, judging by his symptoms, by his qualities, by his knowledge, by his loving exchange, we put our trust in Srila Prabhupada because of his amazing qualities, amazing vision that makes all good sense. But we can actually personally experience it also by going deep, 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 deep into this ocean of Krishna Prema through the vehicle of the Hare Krishna mantra.
Thank you, Srila Gurudev. Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Anything else? Questions, comments, concerns?
Anybody else?
Yes.
Mother, over there.
Yes, thank you. It's wonderful to see our Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like said Maharaj, and the Vaishnav, that he is. We can glorify him at each moment, and the verse bring a lot of blessings. I was amazed by the curse of the Brahmana, who can be annihilated by the reading of the chapter, and each chapter is blessings for the humanity. So feel very inspiring for preach, for distribute the books, and it's very easy. Any problem can be solved by the Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad Gita.
Hare Krishna. That's a fact. That's a fact. In fact, the moment we experience a problem, then we can understand that I have forgotten Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's associates talk about how when there was a problem, Srila Prabhupada would chant very intensely, especially in Los Angeles, pacing up and down in that blue room of his, and chant very intensely. And I've seen other devotees also. Bhakti Marg Swami in Toronto, he directs dramas, Krishna conscious dramas, and those dramas are very difficult to direct, for example, because the people are not reliable. In the crew, cast and the crew, somebody might accept some other service or not show up for a practice, or these kinds of things happens all the time in many projects. And his point is always, he sits down, sometimes he has to adjust the script in order, because something like that happened. And his point is, let us see what Krishna wants us to do here. That's his point. Let us see what Krishna wants us to do here. So which is a very instructive thing. Yes, if we are not in the spiritual vibration, then we will experience only problems and problems and problems. And especially devotees who have some kind of responsibility in the Krishna consciousness movement, they deal with all of this on a daily basis. But they can go on because they are Krishna conscious. And anybody who is not Krishna conscious will not be able to go on. Whether it's book distribution, whether it is management, whether it is continuing your writing, you cannot go on. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Anything else? Please.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So Chandkaji got the mercy of Mahaprabhu, got association, and he got dream of Lord Narsimdev. So is there like it's only by the causeless mercy of Mahaprabhu, or is there like any reference that he have some Sukriti from his previous life or something?
Do you know that? Well, yes, Chandkaji is an eternal associate of the Lord in different ways. But the fact is that it doesn't have to be that way. We have Muslim people who are born in Muslim families who are sannyasis in our movement today. We cannot disclose it openly because those people are crazy. You know, so we don't say that this person was a Muslim before he became a devotee. We don't say that. But there are people like that in the movement. Men, women, grahasthas, vanaprasthas, right? There's a huge range. Pujaris on the altar. People who are born in Muslim families. Right? We have many, hundreds and thousands of such people. I have met dozens of them myself, and I haven't, what percentage of ISKCON have I even met even once? Like, not even 1%, not even 0.1%. So there are many such people. There are people in the Middle East, there are people chanting Hare Krishna with Muslim names not yet initiated on their beads. India, Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, Turkey, right? The Baltics. We have people from all backgrounds. It's continuing. You don't have to be a personal associate of Mahaprabhu to receive Mahaprabhu's mercy. Through the devotees, anybody can receive the mercy. Yesterday we distributed Hare Krishna stickers to Muslim rickshaw drivers. And they took it. And they said, what should I do with this? We said, put it on your sticker, put it on your rickshaw, and it will give you good fortune. And the guy peels it and puts it on his thing. Right? Yes, and Prabhupada, very empowered, his bhajan is still continuing, he's still chanting Hare Krishna inside that's why the Samadhi is a powerful place. Right? All the Samadhis of our Acharyas are powerful because they are not dead and gone. They are there in their Samadhi. And we can experience personal reciprocation from them. That's why we go to the Samadhis. Otherwise, what's the point visiting the tomb of an ordinary person, right? What's the point? Make sense? Yes, anybody can get the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And our goal is to actually make them eligible to get that mercy. So we actually try to find an excuse or a reason to figure out how we can give them that mercy. Right? We can give them prasadam, that's mercy. We can give them books, that is mercy. We just find an excuse, some way to give them the mercy that we have so much of ourselves. Yes? Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, please, mic. That's it? That's it? After this.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. But in this Brahmana's curse to Mahaprabhu is Supreme Personality of Godhead. So nothing will happen to us. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even Brahmana will be benefited. But in our case, if I am cursed by Brahmana or Vaishnavas, how can I take this in a positive way? How can I understand this?
Hear this pastime.
Hear this pastimes.
Hear this pastime. The cursing of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by the Brahmana releases us from all Brahmanical curses. Now, somebody might be unreasonable cursing because we have affected their livelihood or whatever, right? Such curses have no effect on Vaishnavas. Okay. So we don't have to be afraid of somebody just because, they happen to be in a position of power, close to the deity or whatever. Such things will not. But we don't do anything that offends somebody. We don't disrespect them. We don't do those kinds of things. Now, if we do that, then that is an aparadh, which will kill our devotional service. We don't do that.
Okay.
We don't offend people. We don't offend even ordinary people, what to speak of Vaishnavas or Brahmanas. We don't offend anybody unnecessarily. Why we should do that? So when we speak in a way that is, like Prabhupada also did not speak in offensive ways. Like even though he was talking about very low class behavior, he did not offend anybody in his speech. He spoke the truth. Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat. He did that. Prabhupada was heavy only with his disciples because they had already accepted his authority. Prabhupada said that also, that we should not go around giving free advice to people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So we should not offend people unnecessarily. We should see where they are willing to take. Well, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki, Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha ananta koti vaishnavrinda ki jai.